Hey everybody, today we have a question from one of our subscribers. His name is James Sinatra, and he's got a question. Honestly bro, I'm a nice guy. I've been raised in a household of 6 females and no father figure, so I've learned to socialize with females, but I don't know how to interact with men. I tend to feel inferior to other men, so I've become passive around them and become a nice guy. So much so that I don't even know how to feel angry anymore. I figured this out during quarantine and I don't know how to solve it. So first of all, James, I commend you for the courage for you to be able to look at something as uncomfortable as this and not only be able to willing to change it, but also be willing to share it. So I commend you for that. I can personally relate to a lot of the things that you're saying. So let me give you kind of my take on what I think is happening here. And I want to tell you a quick story. So similar to you, I was also very comfortable or kind of raised with naturally a lot of females around me. My mother is a dance choreographer by trade, so naturally I started dancing when I was a little kid. I was probably, I don't know, 7, 8, all the way till I was like 14 maybe, and I was in the presence with mostly girls. The class, just to give you a perspective, was probably 20 girls and like 3 or 4 guys, myself included, right? So to me that kind of gave me kind of a very natural confidence, if you will, to be around the opposite sex. Now fast forward a couple of years, I moved away from Bulgaria, where I'm originally from, moved to London. Huge culture shock, nobody speaking my language, I can't speak the language, so it was like a very difficult times for me. So what did I decide to do? I decided to do something which was scaring me, which was kickboxing. So I went to the gym, and naturally, predominantly maybe 90% of the people that I was training there with were men. And I gotta tell you, that in and of itself made me initially very uncomfortable, because it's not only a new environment, it's something that I'm afraid to do. But I did it anyway. I stuck with it. You know, the first few workouts were a little bit like a little bit stiff and like a little bit anxious about it. But afterwards, man, I loved it. And oftentimes, even though everybody's different, everybody has their own different backstory, history, etc., different fears, different personalities, I found that whenever you're in the presence of other men, especially when you're doing something really difficult together, as intimate as jiu-jitsu, for example, or, you know, boxing, jiu-jitsu, because I tend to prefer that a lot more now, you build a really strong bond with other men, a really strong relationship, and in a sense of brotherhood, sense of camaraderie, just because you're doing something very intimate, which is very difficult, and is bonding you together. So if you're a fan of like something like this, or you're willing to try it, I'll definitely recommend jiu-jitsu or boxing or kickboxing. The second thing I would recommend is do men's work. Create a men's group, or start a men's group, or join a men's group, and being around other men naturally is gonna make you feel a lot more comfortable, and it's gonna give you the sense that you really belong there amongst other men. So there's a couple of benefits from that. One is, the more physical time you spend in the presence of other men, the more you're gonna feel like, oh, I really belong here. Like, this is a good place. I feel good about that. But also specifically towards the kind of more full contact sports like jiu-jitsu, boxing, kickboxing, you're gonna get even more confidence, because you're becoming more competent. In other words, you're learning very specific skills. In other words, you can, let's say, you can outbox someone, or take the best out of them, take the better out of them in a sparring, whether it's grappling or boxing. And that feeling alone is going to give you a lot more competence and confidence, because you're building all these skills. And all of a sudden, like, oh, I really belong here. I belong with other men. I'm spending time with other men. If you can do that, and like combine it with men's circles, or just go and, you know, be curious about it and willing to put yourself out there, I guarantee it, that's gonna fade away very quickly. My personal experience. Second thing is what you said about anger. Well, anger is a feeling, right? Strong feeling of displeasure or hostility, right? This is kind of the textbook definition of it according to Google. Now, probably the best way that I found for something to actually invoke feelings, believe it or not, is breath work. If you're following my my work or any of the kind of the social media, I posted a couple of weeks ago, I think, something that I found very interesting, and that is when people are about to say something that they feel that they're going to be judged, they naturally tense up, right? They don't let the feeling come out. They tend to keep it in here, but they also stop breathing. That's why a lot of men cannot feel, right? Everybody kind of puts this armor in front of them. And as men, we need that. This is a habit that is not very constructive, because keeping all this energy inside of us, all these feelings, is generally not a good thing. Like, this can lead to a whole lot of trouble, diseases, etc., etc. Like, you don't want to end up in like a ticking time bomb, right? You just keep adding and adding and adding. You don't have an avenue to actually be able to express that. And initially you say you're a nice guy, right? So nice guys are probably the worst. I was, a nice guy, and still am to some extent, right? We have, no boundaries. We're always looking for approval from other people. We're always looking to please other people and neglect our own needs. And usually what happens is usually resentment. When other people aren't reciprocate with what we're doing, we tend to build this up, anger, shame, guilt. And this, just like the concoction, becomes really, really toxic. So what I've done is, breath work has really helped me a lot to really be able to unlock all of those feelings. Or even what I've started doing recently, I learned more about bioenergetics, and that is really working with the body to be able to really release this charge that's been that we've been building up as human beings, not just men, as human beings into our body, right? So one is breath work. If you do actually do any type of contact sports, like I said, highly recommend the jiu-jitsu. That anger is gonna come outside, and usually anger is not necessarily a good thing. If you follow anything like UFC, for example, any kind of combat sports, the warrior who is angry or the fighter who's angry usually loses, right? But being able to channel this in a constructive way, being able to exert that energy, aggressive energy, afterwards you feel very light, right? If you remember Fight Club, what did the guy say? After fighting, everything is kind of a little bit toned down, and you can deal with everything. So I do recommend to find a constructive avenue to be able to channel that energy, because it is energy. It's a feeling that you keep storing in, and this energy needs to go out somehow. So combat sports is probably the best way you can do that, to really go a little bit more crazy like that, and be able to do something with your body. And then the second best thing, and no, I wouldn't say second best thing, but if you can do those together, combined with men's work, you'll be like flying. Cool, dude. Hope this was helpful to everybody watching. Please do let me know what type of other content you'd like to see on this channel in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Done.